Hello, friends. Today we'll explore what is Ayodhya. Ayodhya is a capital of Koshal kingdom according to Ramayana, where Rama was born. According to our logic, Ramayana is a literature written specifically to counter Ashokan Buddhism and Ashokan Empire. It was written after death of Ashoka. Ashoka is no more. Ashoka's descendants are ruling Pataliputra, the capital of Magadh, whole Indian subcontinent, from Afghanistan to Sri Lanka, and trying to propagate Ashokan version of Buddhism, of one God, one prophet, one way of life, and people are revolting against that. The revolutionary toolkit or a method to counter that is called Ramayana. Now, this appears to be a tall claim. How to address this issue? Let us start with beginning of Ramayana. When certain author wants to write a revolutionary toolkit like this, that author has to be very careful. He has to create a literature which audience will understand exactly what this is about. But he should not be caught. He should not be charged by the emperor or his police for act of sedition, which happens nowadays also. Subtle messages, allegories, paradoxes, similarities, and a message is delivered in a powerful way. So that starts in first Kand, that is first book of Ramayana, is called as Balakand, the birth and childhood of Rama. Now, how to go about? Very easy. First of all, we have to identify what is Ayodhya. Ayodhya was written thinking into mind which city of India in that particular period. That city is nothing but Pataliputra itself. Pataliputra itself provides a backdrop, structural backdrop for the Balakanda. Now, how to believe it? How to believe it? We'll go by 6 to 7 ways. One is historical Pataliputra, we have to find out. Literary Ayodhya, we have to find out. We have to compare on 6 aspects: size of the city, shape of the city, ruler of the city, description of the city, ministers' names of the ruler, and is there any direct mention of Magad as inhabitants of that particular city. Is it possible? Yes. Historical Pataliputra is quite easy to find. Just go to history of Pataliputra. It is written very well, not by Indians, but by Greek visitors to India, like Megasthenes, who came as ambassador from Greek Yavana to Pataliputra, has written very nicely in his book called as Indica. Then we got Geographia. Geographia is a book written by another person called Strabo. They have written very detailed account of Pataliputra. According to them, Pataliputra was a parallelogram, rectangle, little bit tilted. The shape of Pataliputra was rectangle. It was in the junction of two great rivers. It was surrounded by a moat, and these ramparts were made of wood. It was a big city. They have given dimensions also. And these dimensions, this description, is it matching to our description of Ayodhya? We'll see. Let us start reading Balakanda. First of all, shape of Balakanda, shape of Ayodhya in Balakanda. The Sarg 5, Shloka number 7, they clearly mention it is Ayat, that is rectangle. And the same description is in that historical description. Size wise, they describe proportion. Proportion, how they describe Greek people is stadia, or like 80 by 15 stadia, or 10 by 2 miles or something. So length was more, breadth was narrow. And what Ramana describes is about 12 by 2 yojana. So there can be debate about what is yojana, what is stadia. But see the proportion. It is a narrow strip of land on the river bank, north of the river, and at the junction of two rivers. Now this description matches Pataliputra and Ayodhya, but it is actually is too flimsy an evidence. There can be so many cities like this. Also, Valmiki Ramana describes about very nicely about the gates. Gate. Historically, it is shown that 64 gates were there in Pataliputra. Ayodhya also has got gates. And the peculiar word described in Valmiki Ramayana, especially Sarga 5, Shlok number 10, is Kavata Toranavati Suvibhaktam. Suvibhakta means equally spaced. The gates were equally spaced. And historical description also of Pataliputra is every 500 meters there is a gate. 64 gates are there. There is a ditch around it, and it's like a fort, water fort. Pataliputra was a water fort, and Valmiki Ramayana description of Ayodhya is almost like a fort. The exact word used is Durga Gambhira Parigham. Durga Gambhir is just very serious, very difficult to conquer fort, and that fort surrounded by ditch. And this is also not sufficient. All forts, all ramparts, and this looks like a general description. It can attract attention but doesn't prove anything. Next is very important. Ruler of the city. Ruler of the city, according to Valmiki Ramayana, was great emperor called Dashrath. Dashrath is in literary figure that is father of Rama. But we are talking about Patliputra. Patliputra was there in Dashrath, living there. Yes. Ashoka's next in line ruler, who happens to be his grandson, is Dashrath. I repeat, Dashrath Maurya. Dashrath Maurya as an emperor of India. Less well known, but very important. Why important is it is in his time that empire started to crumble. They got first defeat in Sri Lanka, then Satvana started to come out, Kalinga started to come out, and everything started to unravel. And that is the time we are focusing of time of Ramayana. Now, what is peculiar about this Dashrath is this Dashrath Maurya ascended to throne after Ashoka died because his son was blinded, son can't rule. So grandson came as power in 232 BC. He ruled till 224 BC. He was a good king according to Buddhist literature and all this one. But that is the time when empire started to go down. And most importantly, he did not have a child. So a great city where Emperor Dashrath is sitting wondering about how to have a child. I don't have child. What will happen to the empire afterwards? Can be seen in both places. History also and book also. Emperor Dashrath, who is childless, ruling a great city, is actually a fact. That's Dashrath Maurya. Now, this also not sufficient. Next in line is name of the ministers. Now, here we have to understand, we have to get into shoes of people who wrote Ramayana. They have to be careful. They are writing a book or creating great poem which can land them into jail because that actually essence of Ramayana is against Ashokan version of Buddhism, Ashokan version of rule, against Mauryan Empire, against Magad Empire. They can be jailed. So don't get caught. But common people should understand what they're talking about. Common people sometimes are much more intelligent than intellectual people. They know what is this about, and that should be told in the beginning of the book itself. So beginning of book itself, there is this particular Balakand, and in that ample evidence is given by author to tell you that this book is about Patliputra, this book is about Dashrath Maurya, this book is against the Ashokan Empire. What is that? Let us see the ministers' names. Dashrath has got ministers. So eight prominent ministers are there. His prominent minister Drushta is there, Vijay is there, Sumitra is there, Mantrapal is there. But two ministers' names are very important here. When they start putting the names ministers, these two ministers are put in the middle. And these two ministers are nothing but first minister is Ashok himself. So mention Ashok without mentioning Ashok. Second minister is Siddharth. That is Gautam Buddha's name. Siddharth and Ashok are one of the ministers. So far, shape, size, minister's name, emperor's name, description of the city, but still it is not actually sufficient. Can we find a name called as Magad or Magad people? Actually, they are the inhabitants of this city. That is imagined city called Ayodhya. Is it there? It is there. Let me read that. It is in Sarga 5, Shlok number 11. Sut Magad Samvadham Srimati Atul Prabham Uchatal Dhvajavatim Shatagni Shatasankulam. This is the most important stanza in Balakand according to historical analysis. Now, what is Shatagni? Shatagni means cannon. Cannon. At that time, cannons were there. It may be crude. And hundreds of cannons. Shatagni Shatasankulam. Uchatal, tall buildings, Dwajavati with waving flags and all those things. Now, first line. Sut Magada Samvadham. Suta means those who are artisans, those who are doing manual labor and all. Magada. Who are living there in Ayodhya according to Valmiki Ramayana? They are Magada people. Means those are Magad. That is the key word. So people from Magad, of inhabitants, citizens of Magad, they are the citizens of Ayodhya. Now this is very subtle but important message given by author that this particular thing is about Maurya. This particular thing is about Ashokan Empire. And when Dasharath, the childless emperor, was living there, ruling there, and this whole thing is about him. Let us read now. Now, this particular thing appears to be little bit coincidence. It can be coincidence, yes, but all cannot be coincidence. So this is the beginning to see that parallel between post-Ashokan Mauryan Empire situation of Pataliputra and Ayodhya. Now, Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is very simple. Sri Lanka is Sri Lanka. But was Sri Lanka called Sri Lanka? No. Throughout Ramayana, they call only Lanka. Lanka is a general term for island. So in that situation, the old names of all these islands on the southern side of Indian peninsula are Lakshadweep, Maladweep, and Suvarnadweep. Lakshadweep nowadays we call as Lakshadweep. Maladweep we call as Maldives. And Suvarnadweep became later on Serendip. Then Swarnalanka, Sonachi Lanka, Soneki Lanka, and then nowadays they are calling it Sri Lanka. So original name is Swarnalanka, Swarnadweep, Serendip, full of gold. Now, on one hand, we have got Patliputra, main focus of action. Second thing, the war, which tilted everything, Sri Lankan war. And now, what happens in between are the real heroes of Ramayana. Real heroes of Ramayana are not men, they are monkeys, Vanara. Now, how Vanara can fight and all this? Vanara is a different species. Who are the Vanaras? Who are these Vanaras? We'll find out in our next video and then we'll try to complete the loop completely. Thank you.